Hello everybody, Marcus Godwin here with the Noise of Time Shum Vremeni blog. So, a lot of things have happened since I last spoke to you. Escalation is happening in the war between Russia and Ukraine and the collective West, which is the real enemy, in fact, that Russia is facing here. Where can I start? Well, probably we will start with an attack on a coach, a bus, some people prefer, travelling from Belarus to the Russian Black Sea resort called Zelendnik, if I remember correctly the name of this thing. Now, this bus contained a group of children who are half of them are part of a Belarusian children's football team and the other half part of a dance troupe. The result was that the woman who was chaperoning them was killed, and that 6 or 7 children were injured. Apparently most of them are out of danger now. The fact of the matter is this bus comes from Belarus. The I'm not a military expert. We have all seen, especially as drones have taken over since the second phase of this now 12-year-old war, which started in April 2014, began. We can see that the drone operators see who they're targeting. Now, for the sake of truth and not exactly objectivity, because one can't be objective between right and wrong, but for the sake of truth, it can be said that yes, the Ukrainians and the collective West do sometimes target military and strategically important targets, but they all too often target civilians too. Recently they have targeted students and now children, and children of a foreign country. Just in case people don't understand, Belarus, like Ukraine itself and many other countries that were part of the Soviet Union and the Russian Empire, became an independent country for the first time ever in 1991. Since then, they managed to avoid the excesses of chaos and corruption that definitely afflicted Russia during the 90s, and even more so afflicted Ukraine during the 1990s. They have the longest sitting president on the European landmass, apparently. The Western media loves to call him Europe's last dictator. Well, that is a load of rubbish. They made a very, very serious attempt to overthrow him with a colour revolution in 2020. Because two reasons. They were preparing already to lure Russia into officially joining the war in Donbass, and they needed Belarus on their side. It didn't work out. Also, President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, he steadfastly refused to implement COVID lockdowns and mandates, etc., in any way, shape or form. Here in Russia we had a kind of half version of this. It was still psychologically fairly difficult, I must say, to deal with. Excuse me. This here, I'll change hands. So that is the country of Belarus. It is an independent country since 1991 completely, and Ukraine and the collective West just attacked its children. Now, the drone operator can see what they're doing. He or she can see exactly who they're targeting. I'm not sure if the coach itself was registered in Russia or in Belarus, because there is on the eastern side there's a free border. You just drive through the border without any control, but both countries are independent. So this is basically a provocation. Of course, it's an obscenity. It's to deliberately attack children with drones and rockets. It's a war crime. But it's also a provocation in order to try to get Belarus to enter the war. Since then, Zelensky has threatened Belarus to remove various radar towers and electronic listening posts, if I've understood the technical side of it correctly, from the border with Belarus and Ukraine. So this is also a threat to try and get Belarus to enter the war on the side of Russia, so that at least the Ukrainians and the neocons and the British ruling elites and all those who have been placed in power in France and Germany to execute this war on Russia by the collective West are hoping that if such an escalation could happen, then NATO would have an opportunity to get involved. Lithuania has been talking about taking the Russian enclave of Kaliningrad, which is separated from Russia by Baltic states and by Belarus. So this is one thing that has happened. There have been massive attacks by both sides on each other. Let's start with the Ukrainian side. They have succeeded. Their drones and rockets can now, in the last months, somehow penetrate more easily into Russia or dodge the Russian air defenses and so on. So we have seen attacks on various installations, oil refineries, oil storage facilities, etc., etc., etc. So far, this is not having an effect in general in the Russian Federation, except for one area, which is Crimea, which is, of course, Polostrov. You've forgotten the word, an archipelago. But the connections with the mainland are very thin and quite. Now, apparently, in Crimea, unfortunately, there are shortages of petrol, and again, civilians have been deliberately targeted. This is causing a certain amount of dissatisfaction, let's put it like that, and sometimes, as has happened before in this war in the late 2022, when Russia had to change gears completely and understand it was in for a long war, and that the negotiations that nearly brought about a peace deal were scuppered by Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of Great Britain at the time, with the United States and the collective West behind him, of course. At that point also, many people here began to panic and say we're all losing, and so on. Russia is not losing this war. Russia is advancing steadfastly and better and faster and faster, in fact, on the actual front. But yeah, when you see strikes on Moscow and they hit an oil refinery and there are massive plumes of smoke, as happened in St. Petersburg or near St. Petersburg, it does have a propaganda effect. This cannot be denied. Meanwhile, Russia has equally been striking with much more devastating effect, it has to be said, such installations all over Ukraine, including in and around Kiev. The kind of strikes that led Russia to ask foreign diplomats to leave and people to stay away from military installations have not fully happened yet. But I want to talk about something in particular. During one of these strikes, suddenly there was a fire, there was some kind of missile hit, and then there was a fire in the roof of the Kiev Lavra, which means the Kiev monastery of the caves. This is quite literally one of the most sacred sites in the whole of the Orthodox world. It's too complicated to go into now, but the Russian, Ukrainian and Belarusian Orthodox churches are united, although they have the titles of independent churches in the countries in which they are based, but they are united. And since 2014, when the West installed these rabid anti-Russian racists to do their bidding, they have been making war incrementally on the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which they see as pro-Russian. Making war means literally arresting priests, putting electronic beepers on their ankles and so on, putting them in prison, taking over churches. This particular monastery in the very center of Kiev. I myself was there in 2001, 2 years before I actually got baptized into the Russian Orthodox Church. It had been exquisitely renovated and looked so brand new, it was almost hard to believe that it was such an ancient cathedral and monastery. What happened was a missile of some kind hit the roof during this massive attack by the Russian authorities. Now, the Russian authorities have no desire to destroy one of their most sacred sites. This did not happen by accident. All witnesses say that it looked like an American Patriot missile fired by Kiev went into the roof of this lavra. The only question is, did this happen by accident? Which could very well be, because air defense systems, when they, even if they successfully take out the rocket or drone they're attacking, the debris falls to ground, and the debris and the ground in Kiev or in Moscow or any other big city is, of course, suburban residential areas. So it could have been accident. However, somehow conveniently, journalists were already there immediately to record the very beginning of the fire and the destruction, and so was the Ukrainian, so-called Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky. This makes it very, very suspicious, I have to say, that this was a pre-planned detonation, or that the Ukrainians targeted it themselves. After all, they want to destroy the Ukrainian Orthodox Church and replace it for the time being with a schismatic church run by Bartholomew of Constantinople that they have been planning and working on for years and years now. It's already 11 years this war on the Russian and Ukrainian and Belarusian Orthodox churches has been going on. The West hates Orthodoxy. We know what religion the Western ruling elites in pretty much every country are now, thanks to the release of the Epstein files. Those who were telling you this already 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 years ago, including myself, but of course by no means only, we say, well, we told you so. The Luciferian, paedophile, cannibal leaders of the Western world hate Orthodoxy because they understand, even if we sometimes didn't, even if you don't, especially Westerners watching, that this is Christianity. The Vatican, I'm afraid, and the Roman Catholic Church is with them, as are all Protestant kind of sects and churches, the Church of England and Scandinavian Protestant churches, and of course all these American born-again evangelists and so on who are supporting the fake Zionist state of Israel. Their main target is the Orthodox Church. So we could be looking at a situation now where whenever Russia makes attacks on Ukrainian military and infrastructure targets and strategic targets, they blow up another church. They win. The Western ruling elites, the neocons, the Epstein Island classes, they win, and Christians lose. So this is my opinion. In my opinion, I'm only guessing, I'm using intuition. The destruction of the roof of this church, which has caused very considerable damage, but not the destruction of the monastery itself. If one of the Russian missiles that was falling on military targets in and around Kiev that night had actually hit this monastery, there would be nothing left of this ancient site. It must be remembered that Kiev is the mother of Russian cities, and Grand Prince Vladimir was baptized himself, first of all, in what is today Crimea, and Khersones is now in the suburbs of Sevastopol, Crimea, where the Russian military fleet is based, and was based while Ukraine was an independent country from 1991. That is the first place where Russia converted to Christianity. Then there was a mass baptism of the citizens of the capital of Kiev Rus, the mother of all Russian cities, which is Kiev, in the Dnieper River in that city. And this is why the Western ruling elites are obsessed, not the only reason, but I think it's the fundamental foundation reason why they are obsessed and have been for centuries with getting Crimea out of Russian jurisdiction and of course keeping Kiev out of Russian jurisdiction to break this connection with the historical Christian roots of Holy Russia. That's what they're concerned about. Other issues such as Russia's enormous natural resources and so on, well, I've said it before, I'll say it again. They want it, my precious, they want it, oh yes. But I don't believe this is the first reason why this has happened. There is historical evidence for this too. I mean, in Alexander Nevsky's time, nobody really knew about oil or how to use it, and petrol and gas, etc., etc., etc. But the Roman Catholic Teuton hordes came advancing into Russia, dreaming of converting Orthodox Russia to the newfangled post-schism Catholicism, only a couple of hundred years old at that time. Alexander Nevsky famously had to choose between the invading Mongols from the east, with whom he made a deal because they did not want to change the Russian religion or wipe out Russian culture. They just wanted tutelage and tribute, money in other words. Whereas the Catholics, Teutons, were hell-bent on converting Russia and wiping out Christianity in Russia, and converting it to the newfangled fake Christianity, which is post-schism Catholicism. And so it's been on, so it goes on. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth in 1612, Napoleon, etc. And thus ordinary merchants, business people from the West who were working in Russia during those 500 years always had this in mind. Not all of them, but most of them were always trying to subvert the Russian state, subvert Russia's Christianity, and convert them to newfangled Catholicism. So anyway, that's enough for now. I believe that the attack on the Kiev Pechora Lavra was deliberate by Ukraine, yet another attack on this sacred space where they have held rock concerts, TV, entertainment shows, cooking shows, and where many of the monks have been detained and evacuated from their sacred homes. This is absolute sacrilege. So we see actually that neo-Nazis can also be neo-Bolsheviks. No surprise here, except for those still stuck psychologically or addicted to the fake left-right divide, the fake capitalism versus socialism or fascism versus communism divide. There is no right and left, there's only right and wrong. This is Marcus Godwin signing off from the Yusupovsky Sad in St. Petersburg, Russia, on 21st, longest night of the year, 21st of June 2026. May your God go with you. Bye-bye.